Welcome to Period 5, the interview series where I talk about young changemakers who aren't waiting to grow up to take action. Today I'm sitting down with Vaikari, the founder of Atman, a youth led mental health initiative that's reached over 180,000 students across India. What started as a blog when she was just 14 years old has turned into a powerful platform tackling stigma, access, and education around teen mental health. Let's dive in. Hey Vaikari, how are you today?
I'm great, Pat. How are you?
I'm great as well. I'm so glad to have you on here today.
Me too.
So let's just start it off simple. I wanted to ask you, what is Atman and how does it matter?
What we realized very early on, after I realized that I want to work in mental health, is that the mental health industry in India at least glorifies awareness a lot. And I get it. Like, awareness is a very beautiful start. But what happens is, after awareness, there's a lot of steps ahead you have to take. Like, you need to have some kind of interventional measures and some kind of education alongside awareness so that students especially know what to do, because what happens when a student is in an emergency situation, they reach out to their friends, not to adults. So the other students need to know at least a little about how to handle situations like these. And in general, we talk about emotional so we have a curriculum which is based off of dialectical behavioral therapy, which is a form of therapy like CBT, RBT. And so DPT focuses on emotions mainly. So what we do is we dumbed down that system into 8 chapters, and that's what we teach in schools and booklets and videos.
And so you started Atman as a personal blog at 14. What drove you to write about mental health so early on? And also, how did you manage to scale it to something with thousands of students?
Right. So I'll answer it in 2 parts. So why I started Atman was a very personal reason. So for some context, I was doing 11th grade syllabus back in 7th grade, and it just got overwhelming till the time I got in like 9th grade. And I had this huge burnout, and I used to sleep for like 2 hours. I used to have like panic attacks, and I was severely anorexic and anxious at that time. Um, that was compounded by so within a month of each other, my cousin and my best friend actually tried to attempt suicide. They're fine now, but it was like a very turbulent time for me. And coupled with my experiences, and I just knew that there are a lot of people. And when I was going to therapy due to my background, I was really vocal about it. And students around me really wanted to know, what goes on in therapy, how do I get in without parental consent, and which is not possible. But I just wanted the education part of it out there. So that's why I started Atman. That's why I started with a blog first. So I think the first blogs were about body image issues. I think they were more like bloggy blogs. There wasn't a lot of education in there. That it was again an awareness initiative. But yeah, that got a lot of response, and I got a lot of parents saying, "Oh, you're just a kid. You don't know anything. You'll realize what you're doing after you grow up and stuff." And that's also when I realized that the first. Sorry, I'm mixing a lot of ideas here, but when I was starting out Atman, I thought I would actually cater the services to parents and actually teach them how to handle their kids, like verbatim I'm saying. Like, I thought the root cause of all problems was just parents. But after all the experiences I had, and after I interned with a psychiatrist, I realized that a parent's brain is super formed already. It can't be rewired easily. That's why we started with children. And now what we do is, in government schools, we focus on substance abuse, and good touch, bad touch. And in private schools, we focus on emotional regulation and a hint of substance abuse.
So you mentioned how your first few blogs were mainly not really educational, but more for entertainment, I would assume. So, how did you manage to go just from writing blogs to actually catering to schools? And I assume that being accepted by those school headmasters and parents was probably very difficult, especially coming from a young age.
Right. So it was really hard, right? So what we did first was we went to this medical college here in Nashik, where I'm based out of, and we actually set up a whole curriculum so that we have some kind of proof of concept to show the schools. And first, then we started out with government schools because it's really they're more open to experimentation. And so then we recorded a few sessions, we showed them to a private school accepted us. After that, we actually went to a school whose principal herself was a psychologist. And so it was really serendipitous, you can say. Then we got a letter of recommendation from her, we got a lot of guidance from her, and so that's how we started expanding. And I think before you asked how we expanded a lot. So I think the numbers came mostly from the radio show we had and the booklets that we distributed. So we are trying to work with the government now to circulate the booklets more. And the radio show it ran for a year and a half. And it was almost like 20 episodes. And it was something that was never done before because teenagers aren't allowed on radio as hosts. And so I had just done a radio jockey course. And I was like, oh, please give me this chance. And they were like, yeah, okay, no problem. So it was like really luck was favoring me during those 2 years. So yeah, I think the numbers came from there. I think offline we have reached in the past 2.5 years, 30 to 40,000 students one-on-one through schools.
So for the students that you did work with directly, what were some of the issues that you saw come up most often?
Okay, so I'll be very frank. I think a lot of interpersonal issues and skills are the most lacking. And so we talk to 6th to 9th grade students, right? And all of these issues like fights with teachers, fights with friends, use of internet slang words, and all of this couples up, and then it leads to severe anxiety, severe body image issues, severe alcohol dependence. So we actually had a student who broke a guy's head with a beer bottle because she was just intoxicated. So there's a lot of cases like this. In government schools, most important issue that we've seen is over-dependence on substances. So what we try to do there is we try to explain the difference between normal and common, because it's very common. Substance abuse is very common there, but is it normal? Because they think it's normal because their parents indulge in substances. Their parents actually sell those substances. So yeah, these two issues, emotional dysregulation in private schools and substance abuse in government schools, is what we're focusing on. These were the issues that we thought were the most need of the hour issues to be catered to.
And also, as you mentioned earlier, minors in India can't often access therapy without parental consent. So how did that shape Atman's approach to reaching out to these students?
Right. So what we tried to do is we brought in a fish pond concept. So after every session, they used to write their doubts anonymously on a sheet of paper, put it in the pond. And the next session we referred to a psychologist, a multiple psychologist, and then we answered those questions in the next session. So that's how we tried to at least help them a bit, because there's not a lot we can do ourselves. We're
Mm.
not professionals. So we just try to introduce this concept. It's not very sustainable though, and we're trying to bring on more psychologists and psychiatrists on board, so that there's no discrepancies in what we're saying. And it was the actual academic material that was followed by psychologists and psychiatrists. So it's as accurate as it gets.
Okay. So as you mentioned earlier, some more traditional values are ingrained in the minds of parents and families. So what were some of the biggest misconceptions that you saw them make about teen mental health?
So back when I started, there was this very famous cricketer who did an interview about mental health. It was actually about studies, but he talked about mental health a bit. And I think he said stress kuch nahi hota, that stress doesn't exist. Um, that that I think is the common sentiment. I think he also said, if you love doing something, if you enjoy doing something, you can't get stressed. And it's just not how it works. I think that what he said perfectly encapsulates what every other adult thinks, is just because they've been conditioned like that. It's not even a part of our traditions. It's just I don't know. It's some kind of societal conditioning that they've gone through after like 1950s. It's just like the common sentiment, because people were constantly working. So yeah, I think the most common misconception is just only that stress does not exist, and so every other thing that comes with it does not exist.
So outside of Atman, you've been invited to speak at conferences in Germany and Bangalore. What was it like being the only teenager in those spaces?
I think majority of people don't really take you seriously, but some of them do, and those people are the ones that matter, right? They gave me tremendous exposure and opportunity, and that's what Atman needs right now. And so I'm looking for more and more opportunities. Yeah, I think after the Bangalore meeting, we also expanded to make a branch in Bangalore itself. So yeah, it worked out well. Being the only teenager, it's very overwhelming, but it also has its perks, because people think, oh, invest young. I don't know how to frame it, but like, yeah, it's like they have a lot of time, they have a lot of potential, and they really genuinely want to help young people out. So I think it comes with its perks.
So you've reached over 180,000 students. Was there a moment where you just realized, wow, this is working?
Constantly. Even after the first session, I think there were girls coming out crying, some happy. It's just whatever you say, when you deliver it with passion and with genuine care, people actually resonate with you. And that's why I tell everyone to just go out and do something for anyone. Everyone needs help. Just be a motivational speaker for someone. I think it really helps. I think I've gotten constant reminders, like even now, when we had the new director forms come up for Atman. I think a lot of people wrote about how Atman was started when they were going through stuff, and how we helped them out very indirectly, just through social media. And so that's when we think, okay, yeah, we're doing something great. If even through social media people are having that kind of impact, then through offline sessions it must be much more. I think when we started out, a psychiatrist, Dr. Anita Dound, she has been a great help, by the way. So she told us that in a room of 100 people, even if you impact one, that's great. It's a job well done. It's because you can just help the people who want to be helped. And so yeah, constant reminders.
To end on a fun note, how would you describe yourself in 3 words?
Oh, clumsy, creative, and bubbly. I don't know. It's bubbly award.
So, explain that. Those are really interesting choices. Maybe you could explain why you chose them.
So bubbly because I'm just bubbly. I can't stop talking. I can't stop laughing. I can't stop twirling. I just break out into song randomly. It's just me. And creative in the sense I'll find some shorter, some less time consuming way to do a very I don't know, clerical task. It's just I find different ways to do stuff, and in general also I think I'm booming with creativity. I think even on Atman's page you can see it's very magazine like. It pops out, all the graphics pop out, and it's just very interactive. So I think creativity is fine. I'm also a singer and I write my own songs. So I think creativity comes up there also. And the first word I said was clumsy. Oh, okay. I can't even walk straight. I just I almost got hit by a car like very recently last week. It's Indian traffic and I'm very clumsy, so.
Well, that's such a great way to end. Vaikari, thank you so much for sharing your story and your work with me. It's really been amazing having you on Period 5. And I'll catch you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye, everyone.
Well, that's the wrap of this episode of Period 5. Huge thanks to Vaikari for showing us what it looks like when passion meets purpose, and for reminding us you don't have to wait for permission to start something that matters. If you enjoyed this conversation, make sure to follow along for more interviews with young leaders who are changing the game. You can check out Atman and learn more about Vaikari's work at the link in the description below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time on Period 5.